music.
There is no terrible way to win. There is only winning.
We won't be out long.
Take your time. Track's all yours.
You ready? The name on the middle of that steering wheel should tell you that I was born ready. Hit it. Attaboy.
Let me drive. I will make a fool out of you.
I got a message for all of them. Shake and bake.
What does that do? Does that blow your mind?
That just happened.
These cars, you sit in a box, a coffin, gasoline all around you. It isn't like it being inside a bomb.
It's tough enough being a girl on the track. Living in my dad's shadow doesn't help much.
You have to be kind to the car. You feel the poor thing groaning underneath you.
No race was ever won in the first corner.
I'm gonna give you an engine, low to the ground, extra big oil pan will cut the wind from underneath you. That'll give you 30 to 40 more horsepower.
Every one of us has to find a reason to do this. You do it because you're driven.
Brakes are warm. Tires are warm.
I'll work in the cars and I'll drive and I'll eat and sleep and I'll work in the cars and I'll drive.
Damn fast, and when he runs so close together, it requires fantastic concentration and rather special skills.
I was beginning to think I'd never be anything more than a piston-happy lead-foot punk. Then this starts to happen.
If you're going to push a piece of machinery to the limit and expect it to hold together, you have to have some sense of where that limit is.
Besides, the best drivers don't dwell on the future or the past. The best drivers focus only on the present.
They could never have imagined it, those pioneers who invented the automobile, that it would possess us like this in our imaginations, our dreams.
I'm gonna give you a fuel line that will hold an extra gallon of gas. I'm gonna shave half an inch off you and shape you like a bullet.
Somebody put it in your mind you gotta be perfect every time out or you're a failure. Well, forget that. Just forget it.
Racing is in my blood.
I was put on this earth to race cars.
I accept every time I get in my car. There's 20% chance I could die, and I can live with it, but not 1% more.
No, Nicky, don't bring the percentages into this. Don't be a pro. The minute you do that, you kill what's good about this. You kill the sport.
And at that speed, your reactions can barely keep up with these sudden changes in direction.
You ready to put away your toys and grow up?
You want me to work the pit and you drive? Fine, we'll try that.
The car's a living, breathing thing, and she's alive.
If any of us imagined, really imagined, what it would be like to go into a tree at 150 miles an hour, we would probably never get into the cars at all. None of us.
Are you ready to become a real race car driver?
I am just as good as anybody out there on that track, and I don't need anybody to win my races for me.
I wish my daddy were alive to see this, to feel this.
And when we get you primed, painted, and weighed, you'll be ready to go out on that racetrack. You hear me? You're gonna be perfect.
You don't understand what happens, do you? They make 10,000 cars, they make them exactly the same way, and one or two of them turn out to be something special. Nobody knows why.
When I won it was probably the last time I ever felt pure victory.
So it has always seemed to me that to do something very dangerous requires a certain absence of imagination.
Because I'm quicker than all of you.
Soon you will know what it is like to be defeated by the hands of somebody who is truly better than you.
The only thing to do here is to drive just as fast as you know how and hope your car doesn't break.
And if you no longer go for a gap that exists, you're no longer a racing driver.
If you ain't first, you're last. There's 40 other vultures out there who managed to finish the race on their tires. You see Darrell Waltrip using up his tires?
There's nothing I can't do with a race car.
Oh, hell, isn't that what we're in this for? To stare death in the face and to cheat it? Come on, there's nobility in that. It's like being knights.
Sometimes you could swear the whole thing's falling to bits.
No pressure, nobody breathing down my back, just driving because I left it pure.
On the other hand, I suppose potential problems are in the back of your mind all the time.
So in many ways, I feel responsible for what happened. And
You were, but trust me, watching you win those races while I was fighting for my life, you were equally responsible for getting me back in the car.
You're so lucky. You sit there all closed in by machinery and bolts, precise things. There's hardly any room for you. It must be a nice, safe feeling.
You gotta learn to trust something. Might just as well be the seat of your pants.
A lot of people go through life doing things badly. Racing is important to men who do it well. When you're racing, it's life. Anything that happens before or after, it's just waiting.
Well, we can drive. We can drive beyond the limits of the tires, the engine, the car, anything else.
look out there is the perfect lap. No mistakes, every gear change, every corner, perfect. You see it.
I just hope when you do, that I'm there to see it.
Ask any racer, any real racer. It don't matter if you win by an inch or a mile. Winning's winning.
But it isn't just business, is it? What we do. It's passion, love, which is why we are prepared to risk our lives for it.
Racing. That's the name of the game, isn't it? Win or lose, put up or shut up.
Why does everybody keep telling me what my problem is?
That you get so emotional.
You would never, ever say that to a guy.
If you don't leave your feelings off the track, you're never going to get what you want.
I'm a race driver, and I can win it on my own! Please let me race.
Fine. Then let's race.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and once again, welcome back to the Grand Prix World Series. We're here for round 9 at Brands Hatch. We are now past the halfway point of the season, and we're starting to get an idea of what the championship contenders could be as we head into the second half of the season. Following the last race at Dijon-Bourgogne, though, we did have a mid-season driver test where teams were able to evaluate their reserve drivers alongside some brand new test drivers to see how they would get on in their Grand Prix World Series cars. And to take you through the results and what happened is over to Tom Cairns.
Starting with lead 2, Fondmetal carried through their strong pace with a 1-2 finish for Lucas Auer and Esteban Gutierrez, with their newest challenger Jerome D'Ambrosio almost half a second off the pace. Dams Vaillant had their strongest showing of the season, as new boys Mirko Bortolotti and Nelson Piquet Jr. both ended in the top 6, while James Collado did a fantastic job to put his Real in the top 10. MotoGP legend Marc Marquez had a decent showing in the Force India with the 13th fastest time, while Naruhiro Matsushita and Marino Sato didn't get the most out of the dome in 14th and 16th. Charles Pic and Felipe Drogovic were narrowly slower than their teammates in 19th and 20th, but could their performances put them in the spotlight for a full-time drive in the near future? The most disappointing driver in the Lead 2 test was Karun Chandhok, who circulated a podium finishing car 1.8 seconds off the pace in 24th position, and 7/10 slower than his Zaxby partner Sam Bird, who was 12 places higher up. Narain Karthikeyan was slowest of the whole Lead 2 field. In League 1, it was total domination of the test for Minardi, as Jean-Eric Verne lapped over half a second quicker than anyone else. His teammate Jack Doohan finishing second, but still 6/10 ahead of third place Marco Andretti. Conor Daly got the most out of the Leighton House for P4, while Nick Yellerly earned himself a race seat with an eye-catching run to P5 in the HRT. Adrian Quaife Hobbs showed strong pace once again in the Arrows in preparation for his substitution appearance at Brands Hatch, while Castroneves got himself up to speed for his own return to the grid. Danny Kvyat's return to action after his 2-race ban resulted in a P8 finish, but it wasn't enough to convince Onyx to return him to the grid, while Williamson and Giovinazzi rounded out the top 10. Ryo Hirakawa's first appearance in the Grand Prix World Series resulted in the 11th fastest time, ahead of Nico Prost and Ollie Berman, who will make his race debut at Brands Hatch. Jehan Duravala exceeded expectations in the 40 with P15, the Indian rewarded with a race seat for the rest of the season. AGS's all-female driver lineup couldn't get the most out of the car with P24 and P25, while Bernie Eccleston was a whopping 4.4 seconds off the pace in last.
Thank you very much, Tom. A lot of food for thought there for the team managers as they ponder over any driver decisions to make as they look to potentially bring up some of their reserve drivers and test drivers into race seats. We'll bring you any of those changes later on. First of all, as we look to get the racing underway today, we're going to have a look at the standings. And in the League 2 driver standings, it is Pascal Wehrlein who leads the way heading into the second half of the season. 81 points for the German, only 1 point ahead of Tatiana Calderon, who has put in some consistent point scoring since her victory in Yongam earlier on in the season. Marcus Ericsson is on 77. He'll be languishing a bit, feeling like he should be leading this championship, having thrown away the race lead last time out in Dijon-Bourgogne. Brendan Harley still holding on to that top 4 as well with 73 points in the Pacific. Those top four breaking their own group away a little bit there, with Alexander Rossi falling behind in 5th place on 54 points. He's 19 behind Brendan Hartley at the moment. Kimi Sato not scored too many points since his victory in Fuji earlier on in the season, but still hanging on to the top 6 in the championship. 1 point ahead of Lucas Di Grassi in the Zach Speed. Jack Aitken is in 8th on 47, while Andre Lotterer and Takuma Sato round out the top 10 on 35 and 34 points respectively. In the team standings for League 2, Fondmetal showing the way forward as they top the standings on 158 points. Mastercard Lola is in second on 123. Only 2 teams so far in League 2 into triple digits at the halfway mark of the season. Pacific still in third on 89 points. 4 ahead of Zach Speed, still to win a race this season, but some consistent scoring is keeping them up there fighting for promotion against the likes of Pacific. Dome is in 5th on 83 points, ahead of Force India on 59. LaRousse and Andrea Moda both on 58 points, while Coloni and Carlin round out the top 10 with 39 and 27. Now, as far as driver changes are concerned for the League 2 race today, it's only one thing we need to tell you about. There's a double change at Dams Viant, who is actually under new management. Phil Kinch has taken over from Jake Sanson at the team, and straight away he's made a double driver change as Mirko Bertolotti and Nelson Piquet Jr. will make their marks in the Grand Prix World Series for this season. Mirko Bertolotti will be making his debut at Brands Hatch, while Nelson Piquet Jr. returns since his antics in Season 2 with BMS Scuderia Italia. And how have they fared as far as the grid is concerned? Well, neither of them on pole. It's actually Marcus Ericsson looking to put right the wrongs of Dijon Burgoyne as he put it on pole position. What was a very closely fought session, actually. Out-qualified Mick Schumacher by 44 thousandths of a second, while Gary Paffett in the Ram also within a 10th, and Tatiana Calderon also within a 10th. 4 drivers within a 10th of each other at the head of the field. Very close qualifying this was. Pascal Wehrlein, our championship leader, is 5th, ahead of Brendan Hartley, one of the other championship contenders there in 6th. Takuma Sato, 7th in the Dome, 4 tenths of a second behind Ericsson's time, while Nelson Piquet Jr. on his return to the Grand Prix World Series will line up 8th in a Dams Viant, ahead of Alexander Rossi and Jack Aitken, who gets a better qualifying for himself after a couple of disappointing outings in the last few rounds. Sergio Sette Camara will be 11th in the Pacific Grand Prix, showing good turn of pace for a change this season. He's been struggling a bit to find form. Maybe he could score some points today for the Pacific and aid their championship challenger against Fondmetal. Dan Tickton will be 12th in the Real on home soil, along with Callum Ilott, Jake Dennis and Oliver Rowland, a group of Brits there at Brands Hatch Grand Prix. They were looking to move up and score points today. Mirko Bortolotti on his debut in the Grand Prix World Series will be 16th, ahead of Kimi Sato, Raffaele Marcello, Alan McNish and Mike Conway. That is your top 20, all within a second of the benchmark time. 21st will be Lucas Di Grassi in the Zach Speed, ahead of Christian Lundgaard, Jaime Alguersuari, Fabio Lima and Andre Lotterer, with Luciano Bacchetta at the back, with him and Lotterer picking up back at the grid penalties last time out at Dijon Burgoyne. Well, that is your summary of League 2 heading into the Brands Hatch Grand Prix, and to take you through the action for Lights Out, it is Tom Cairns.
Marcus Ericsson on pole again for the second round running. Can he convert it into victory this time? Mick Schumacher hoping to make it 2 wins in a row after his sterling performance at Dijon Burgoyne. As we wait for the 5 red lights to go out, we'll be racing here in Brands Hatch, this legendary circuit based in Kent in the United Kingdom. The 5 red lights are on. Lights out, and away we go. Marcus Ericsson getting off the line well. Mick Schumacher maybe not as good, but watch out for Gary Paffett in the Ram, looking to make a move right round the outside as they approach Paddock Hill Bend. But it's Marcus Ericsson in the Fondmetal who leads. Mick Schumacher second. Next, Gary Paffett in 3rd place, with Tatiana Calderon making a move as they go through Druids. She's up there in 3rd position now in the Mastercard Lola. So 2 Mastercard Lolas in the top 3, but it's Ericsson in lead. Schumacher second, Calderon 3rd. It's Gary Paffett. Pascal Wehrlein in the second Fondmetal is 5th. Then it's Brendan Hartley's Pacific in 6th position. Takuma Sato in the Dome is 7th, followed by Jack Aitken in the Force India 8th. Nelson Piquet Jr. on his return to the Grand Prix World Series is 9th. And Dan Tickton in the Real in 10th place. As we see Calderon go off as she tried to make a move on Mick Schumacher and very nearly took out the Ram as she rejoined back onto the circuit on the exit of Hawthorns. So bad mistake there from Calderon, and she's lost 3 positions as a result of it. Well, there is Ericsson making his way through towards the end of the lap. The last corner of the circuit before they go onto the Brabham pit straight is clearways, and Ericsson seems to have got through there as Alexander Rossi has made a mistake through the left-hander before the end of the lap as Ericsson posts the first fast lap of the race, but that lap time will come down in a short while. We can see plenty of drivers making moves left, right and centre. Is definitely a circuit we get overtakes on. Just seen a move there. Looks like Rafael Marciello getting the move done on Alexander Rossi, and he goes up into 12th position. What a circuit Brands Hatch is. It's putting on a show already in the Grand Prix World Series so far. And Ericsson making the most of it in the Fondmetal. He's hoping to not make the same mistake as he did last time out in Dijon-Bourgogne, where he went off the circuit and he damaged his front wing, which meant he had to make an extra pit stop, and he dropped down to 6th place by the end of the race. Well, there is Mick Schumacher keeping up with him. Showing some promising signs so far is the young German. We are looking further back. That looks like Dan Tixon in the final points paying position in 10th spot. And they're coming through clearways now. It's also known as the Clark Curve, or parts of the section of the circuit there. As we see what looks like Jake Dennis getting moved on Dan Tixon going into Paddock Bend, and he can't quite do it there. So Dan Tixon holds his nerve and stays ahead of his compatriot. Gary Puffett in P3 in the Ram, looking to get back in form at the moment. Ram have yet to achieve a podium in the Grand Prix World Series. This is their 9th race, as it is their debut season. They have shown signs of promise at times, particularly Alan McNish, I think it was, last time out in Dijon-Bourgogne, who brought the car home in 4th position by my memory. Just looking at the results of the season so far, he's finished 4th in Dijon-Bourgogne, so yes, I was right. We just saw Jack Aiken making a move there, or trying to make a move on Takuma Sato, but to no avail. Behind Jack Aiken is the Brazilian, the son of 3-time Formula 1 World Champion Nelson Piquet. That is Nelson Piquet Jr., of course. Mick Schumacher with a new fast lap of the race at the end of lap 3. It's a very quick lap, is this Brands Hatch circuit, even on the Grand Prix configuration. It is the configuration that they are all using. And in the picture there is the Zach Speed. I think that's Oliver Rowland, who is just making his way through Druids. And then through Surtees comes Gary Puffett in front of Pascal Wehrlein. And behind Wehrlein is the Pacific of Brendan Hartley. Calderon is still in 6th place at the moment after earlier off in the race. So at least Moss Codlow have still got both of their cars running. Could have so easily been Calderon out on the spot on that one. And we've just seen Sergio Sette Camera going for it on Alexander Rossi. The attempted manoeuvre has cost him ground, and he falls back into the clutches of the pack behind. And there is Puffett in P3. As they all complete lap 4. Hartley going for it on Pascal Wehrlein into Paddock Bend, but he can't make the move stick. Now the question is, which pit strategies are each of the drivers looking to do? It's unknown until closer to the time, unless we have a look on the dashboards. But Ericsson is ahead of Schumacher for the time being. The gap between the two is just under a second. And another 3 seconds back almost is Gary Puffett in the Ram. Of course, it's 40 years since the co-owner of Motorsport Vision, Jonathan Palmer, made his Formula 1 debut on this track for, of all teams, Ram. And I do recall him saying it was around about 10 seconds off the pace to the fastest car during the course of the weekend. And we have seen a move there. Ooh, almost like Callum Ilott trying to get through on Sergio Sette Camera. And it would have been a bit of a risky manoeuvre through what is known as Sheen's Curve, which is named after the motorbike legend Barry Sheen. And Dan Tixon under threat from the Andrea Moda of Jake Dennis through turn number 1 they go. Tixon is able to stay in front for the time being. And there is Ericsson in P1. Behind him is Mick Schumacher. Both are continuing to pull away from the rest of the pack. Now Marcus Ericsson, after his points finish this, as you can see Mick Schumacher running a little bit wide there through Hawthorns, but getting away with it. The championship is concerned, Pascal Wehrlein goes into this 1 point ahead of Tatiana Calderon, with Marcus Ericsson third, another 3 points back. Will make that 2 because he's already got the point for pole position. And Brendan Hartley 8 points off the championship lead in 4th position. It's looking increasingly likely that one of those 4 will win the League 2 Drivers' Championship this season. But never say never to those behind, particularly Alexander Rossi, who had shown some early promise at the beginning of the season, and of course of recent. He just hasn't quite hit the same form as it is just yet. And maybe don't rule out Mick Schumacher just yet either. We've got 8 rounds to go, including this one. And with a victory already under his belt, he may well come into the fray in the closing rounds of Season 3. And there is Gary Puffett, continuing to drop back, but he is holding firm in 3rd position. Behind him is Wehrlein and Hartley. As we see Hartley thinking of making a move there on Wehrlein, but can't quite get through on this occasion. The drivers approach the end of the 7th lap, and that's Lima off the circuit. And he's lucky to get back onto the track and not take out the Andrea Moda of Andre Lotterer as he rejoined. Now he went for the move on the Coloni of Jaime Alguersuari, and it was never going to work there. He clouted the wall through Hawthorns, but was able to get back on the circuit without causing any more drama. And there's Ericsson in P1, going through the hairpin of Druids. And there we can see Jake Dennis line up a move on Dan Tixon as they begin the lap. We're not seeing too many changes throughout the field at the moment. Maybe the Brands Hatch circuit is becoming a more notorious circuit to pass on than anticipated. And there we can see Mike Conway in the Real. He's running in 21st position ahead of Christian Lundgaard and Lucas Di Grassi. It's also worth noting that Mirko Bortolotti in the Dams Vion. Now, Dams Vion replaced both of their drivers, Teo Pourchaire and Simona Di Silvestro, last time out, after a managerial change came during the Dijon-Bourgogne round. And Pourchaire was demoted to a reserve role. Simona Di Silvestro is essentially now a free agent. Jake Sanson was previously in charge of the team, and now it's in the hands of the former AGS team manager, Phil Kinch. Well, Ericsson is out in front, continuing to lead the way, but what strategy will he be on compared to the others? There's Luciano Bicchetta trying to get through on Alan McNish into turn 1, but to no avail. Stays behind the Ram for now. No retirements so far in this race. We're on lap 9. And it's so far so good for Marcus Ericsson. We'll be hoping to keep it that way up until the checkered flag. There you see Alexander Rossi thinking about a move on Oliver Rowland into Westfield, but can't quite do it there. There's Ericsson crossing over the line to complete the 9th lap as Ilott cannot find a way past Kamir Sato. He falls back and Mirko Bortolotti will close in on him a little bit. I think it is going to come down to pit strategy. Which strategy will be the best. Depends on how much time you do lose in the pits, of course. As Jake Dennis goes for a move up the inside of Nelson Piquet. Dan Tixon's already got through, so is Piquet Jr. carrying an issue here? Because it looks like he's lost 2 positions in a blink of an eye. We'll find out in a moment as we go back to Ericsson. And Pico Jr. is still in front of Marcello, so it could well have just been a mistake from Pico Jr.'s path. And there are the leaders. There's Ericsson completing lap 10. Doing very well so far as we see Kalamailot riding the curbs, going through Westfield and so that was Westfield and then Dingledale. And he's just come out of Stirling's now. Out of Clearways. And he'll be completing his 10th lap. And there is Lucas Di Grassi. Cannot find a way past. He's finding it difficult as well to make a move. This is the 9th round of the Grand Prix World Series. After Brands Hatch, we go to Hockenheim, Panonia, Valencia, Buenos Aires, Curitiba, San Carlos and Laguna Seca, which will be the hosts of the final round. The calendar for Season 4 is in progress. We don't have any news in terms of what the calendar is going to be until further down the line. And there's Puffett in P3. Nearly 3 seconds in front of Tessana Calderon. It's now in front of Pascal Verline and Brendan Hartley, believe it or not. So Calderon's gone back up to 4th position now. She seems to be making up some important ground. And there we can see the Zach speed, which is Lucas Di Grassi, who's in a Coloni sandwich in 23rd position, as far as I remember. As we see Rafael Marcello in the forcing, they're going for it on Nelson Piquet Jr. And Marcello can't find a way past either. No retirement so far. Perfect, continuing on his way in P3, looking for his best result in the Grand Prix World Series. And his previous best result, Gary Perfect, has been a 13th place finish in round 6 of the championship, which was in Istanbul. And he's picked up 1 point, which came on his debut when he took pole position in Fuji. There you can see Fabio Lima getting through on Andre Lotterer now, and that move was good enough for him to go up into 25th position. Getting to see a few more overtakes now, which is good to see. The gap between Ericsson and Schumacher is 1.1 seconds. We see Ericsson coming through. Don't know if he thought about going into the pits, but decides to carry on for now. Schumacher is closing back in a little on the Swede. Now Marcus Ericsson, who has won on 2 occasions this season, in Zental and in Kyalami, hoping to make it 3 for the season, which will be the 5th for Fondmetal this campaign. They arrived this round with 158 points, 35 clear over second place MasterCard Lola, and the gap between Fondmetal in the lead and Zach Speed in 4th position is currently 73 points. Now, the maximum score a team can get in a round of the Grand Prix World Series is 45. Fondmetal looking very, very good for promotion this season. So, looking back at Alan McNish trying to get through on Mirko Bortolotti. No change at the moment there, as Lucas Degrassi still can't find a way through on Christian Mungard either. I'm just wondering if we'll be seeing any pit stops anytime soon. Ericsson continuing to lead, only 1 second clear ahead of Schumacher. As Aiken looks to make a way through on the dome of Takuma Sato. That would have been very brave doing it into Surtees. But Aiken sits back and has to settle in behind. He's got another couple of seconds in hand over Dan Ticktum in 9th. So it's not like he's falling back into the clutches of him. So there are the leaders coming round to complete lap 15. And the two are going through Druids now. Gary Paffett in 3rd. You can see Brendan Hartley going for it on Pascal Verline into Paddy Gilbert, but he can't get through yet either. Having to hold back is the Kiwi. Racing Formula 1 for Toro Rosso at the back end of 2017 and raced full time for them in 2018, but it didn't quite work out for him as he had hoped. And since then he's been involved in Formula E for a bit, and of course the World Endurance Championship with Toyota Gazoo Racing. So we can see Gary Paffett in 3rd position, nearly 9 seconds off the lead. Calderon closing in as well in the Mastercard Lola. And we can see a pit stop in the Mastercard Lola garage as Mick Schumacher comes in from 2nd position. Now, how long is the pit stop going to be for him? I don't think we saw an image of Schumacher coming in, and Brendan Hartley is also in. He was in behind Calderon as well, and he'll have been in 4th position. There's Degrassi in 23rd place, or coming in from 23rd position I should say. Alan McNish also coming in at the same time, Jake Dennis also, Oliver Rowland. I'm interested to know where Mick Schumacher has ended up after his pit stop. And he ended up in 14th position behind Callum Ilott. He's a couple of seconds behind him in the first sector, so I think the amount of time you do lose in the pits is around 32 seconds at least, if not 33 or 34. So you do lose quite a bit of time in the pits. Vitally important you get out in track position. Oh, that's a big shot! That's Tatiana Calderon! He hit the curb so violently, and that's thrown him off the circuit at Druids. Terrible mistake there by the Colombian. She caught the curb on the exit of Paddock Band. The front left came off, and she had nowhere else to go. Big shunt there, and that'll have shocked her quite a bit. Just when it was looking good for Mastercard Lola, has somewhat turned upside down. Tatiana Calderon out of the race here in Brands Hatch, and that's a bad dent to Mastercard Lola's promotion hopes. Now is Marcus Ericsson continuing on as Bicetta comes into the pits, and that's Tatiana Calderon's first retirement of the season as well. She's done very well to get up to this point without a non-finish, but that's her first one this season now. It's a bad dent to her Drivers' Championship hopes too. And back to the action, we can see Alexander Rossi trying to get through on the Pacific of Sergio Sette camera. Marcus Ericsson is into the pits now from the race lead. Now, he stayed out a couple of laps longer than Mick Schumacher did. And Mick Schumacher would have had the track position, I would have thought. Gary Puffer is also in, which allows Pascal Wehrlein to take over the lead. Jack Aitken is also in the Force India. Now, where is Ericsson going to get out in comparison to Mick Schumacher? Because Schumacher is trying to take over the race lead. I think Ericsson has got out in front of Mick Schumacher by quite some way. Now he's rejoining 5th place behind Piquet Jr. Schumacher is stuck behind Callum Ilott. So Ericsson's timing of his pit stoppers, it was perfect for him. And now he's got a damn fion of Piquet Jr. is yet to stop in this race. There is Dan Tixon. Keep going there in P3 as Ericsson makes a move on Piquet Jr. Does he get through? Yes, he does. Into Hawthorns. And he goes through as Mick Schumacher does so on Callum Ilott. Well, Pascal Wehrlein carries on his way. He'll be coming up to bat markers, I'd have thought, very shortly. Although he's not stuck behind anyone yet. I would have thought he would be on a one-stop strategy. Will Pascal Wehrlein. He's already won, I think, on 2 occasions this season as Wehrlein, I'm mistaken. Yeah, he's won on 2 occasions in Istanbul and Misano. It's all falling into place for Fondmetal at the moment. Mascot Lower will be ruined. That error by Tatiana Calderon. She's the first retirement of the race. As you can see Sato, as you can see Rossi. Behind Sete Camera still. And behind Rossi is Mick Schumacher. As they all go through Dingledale. Heading towards Stirling's. Wehrlein continuing on his way. Takuma Sato ducking into the pits. In the dome. Piquet Jr. goes ahead of him. Sete Camera and Rossi are also in. That releases Mick Schumacher. And there we can see Andre Lotterer stopped behind Fabio Lima. Dan Tixon up there in 2nd place now in the Real. Going very well indeed. Can he bag his first points of the season? Real have had a season to forget so far. They really need some reprieve as soon as possible. Currently bottom of the championship on 2 points. And there we can see a move from the ram of Gary Paffett on his compatriot Mike Conway. So both Conway and Tixon are seemingly on the one-stop strategy. Might be the 2, but they've left it later than most. So Wehrlein and Tixon come into the pits. That allows Marcus Ericsson to go back into the race lead. And Mick Schumacher will go back into 2nd place. Piquet Jr. also in the Dams Fion. Callum Ilott also heading in. And Mike Conway is staying out in the Real, which is interesting. On lap 22, Ericsson's lead is 6 seconds over Schumacher. Made that 6.5 seconds because Schumacher isn't exactly gaining ground on him. And we see a problem there for one of the Rams. Now, is that Gary Paffett or is that Alan McNish? Seems to be suffering some technical difficulties at the moment. And I think that's Alan McNish that's pulling off the circuit. So one of the Rams is out of the race. And so McNish's race has ended in retirement thanks to a gearbox issue. Ericsson completing another lap. Schumacher looking to see what the gap between those two is. It's 6.7 seconds. Schumacher is continuing to lose ground on the Swede. There's Piquet Jr. after his first pit stop, is in 13th position. And Conway is in for his first stop now. He was running in 4th position before he heading into the pits. He'll fall out of the points once he rejoins. And there's Bortolotti. Trying to make a move. Can't quite tell who that is. He's outside the top 15 anyways, Bortolotti. Just saw an image there of Dan Tipton, who's in 8th place now. After the pit stops. Having a strong race indeed, and this has been Real's best performance of the season so far. And there's Gary Puffett. Hoping to bag Ram's first podium of the campaign. They've had 2 4th place finishes so far. Both of which came from Alan McNish. Oliver Rowland in 10th place now in the Zach Speed. He's the only Zach Speed driver in the points. And this is actually good news for Fondmetal and MasterCard Lola, because they can stretch themselves further clear of Zach Speed. Now, the next team behind Zach Speed are Dome, who are only a couple of points adrift, though, of the German squad. And as far as Dome is concerned, Kim Asato is running in P7, which would be enough to bag 6 championship points. We've just seen a replay of Rafael Marcello making a move, I think, on Oliver Rowland into turn 1, and that was a brilliant overtake into Paddock Hill Bend, and that's enough to move Marcello up a position. And there's Lucas Di Grassi, we saw for a brief moment. Back to Mick Schumacher. The gap is 7.7 seconds, now make that 7.8. He's looking though he's going to be content with 2nd place, unless something goes wrong with Ericsson up front. At least Ed Spencer has got 2 of his cars in the points now. Jack Aiken in 6th, Marcello in 10th. Force India went into the round, 6th in the standings. 40 points off automatic promotion, or promotion I should say. You can never know what could happen in the second half of the season. The next upgrade window opens after the Brands Hatch Grand Prix round. An opportunity for the managers to improve their cars' reliability and brake horsepower. And that can make all the difference between winning and losing. And sets the camera looking to make a move on Kamir Sato for 14th position at Paddock Hill Bend. Didn't quite come off. But Puffett is in P3. Doing very well in this one. He's nearly 4 seconds clear of Pascal Wehrlein. Just 2 drivers out of the race so far. Alan McNish we lost most recently after a gearbox issue. And at the same spot, Tatiana Calderon hit the curb and the grass very heavily. It torn the front left wheel off and it threw her off the road. She's okay, but her race was very much over on the spot there. And we have 24 drivers still running in this race as we see Kamir Sato under threat still from the Brazilian Sergio Sette Camara. And behind Sette Camara is the LaRousse of Calamaila and the Dans Vion of Mirko Bortolotti. And we can see Ilott going for it into Paddock Hill Bend. There was very nearly contact between the two, but Ilott was still able to keep his foot in it. And that's going to give Sette Camara more to worry about at this moment in time. Now Ericsson will be coming up to back marker. Surely, and Puffett nearly driving his car into the wall there through Dingledale. He was able to come away from that unscathed. We're approaching the halfway point in this race now. It doesn't seem to be like we're seeing any one-stoppers at this moment in time. I think it's going to come down to maybe survival of the fittest, in all honesty, but the cars are, you know, maintaining the reliability. You never know what can happen from here on in. As we see Nelson Piquet Jr. in the Dance Violent going for it on the sack speed of Oliver Rowland. He's not able to get through there. And that's going to allow Alexander Rossi to close back in again. Nine seconds is the margin between Ericsson in the lead and Schumacher in second. And there is Schumacher running in P2. As Conway looks to make a move. I think that's the Carlin Luciano Becchetta, but he's nudged him out the way through Surtees. We'll get a replay of that, but it looks like Conway just bars his way through. Now, does Becchetta leave him enough room, or does he not notice that Conway was coming through? I think that's more on Conway's part, to be honest with you. I think he just bashed Becchetta out of the way, and that'll be a 10-second time penalty coming his way. Just waiting for the stewards to update us on the situation, and it's a 10-second time penalty for Mike Conway, so wherever he ends up, 10 seconds will be applied to his race time. Not really what team manager Ed Hunter would want to be seeing from Conway. There is Gary Paffett in third place, making his way through Surtees. He's only less than 2 seconds ahead of Pascal Wehrlein now. Wehrlein eating into the gap ahead. And Becchetta is under threat from the sack speed of Lucas Di Grassi into Paddock Hill Bend. And Di Grassi is not able to go through there, but he's able to do it through Druids if he's clever enough. He sits back behind the Carlin. As Gary Paffett continues on in third position. We've got the League One race coming up after this, so do not go anywhere. Callum Ilott, one of many drivers racing on home turf, looking to get through on Mirko Bortolotti. I think he lost a position to him not too long ago. Ilott down a position from where he was before. There is Ericsson in the race lead. It won't be too long before he catches up to any back markers. The fastest up of the race is Mick Schumacher with a 1 minute 8.6. And further behind we are seeing Piquet Jr. attempting to make an overtake on Oliver Rowland. Now, as it stands with the points as they are, with Ericsson in the lead and Wehrlein in fourth place, with the pole position points to go with what they're potentially going to be gaining out of this. Oh, there's a nudge there, and Kamir Sato's been barred off the circuit by Sergio Sette Camara. We'll go back to the championship permutations in a moment, but I want to go back to this incident between Sette Camara and Kamir Sato at Surtees. And I think that's just a carbon copy of what Conway did with Becchetta. And Sette Camara will be getting a time penalty for that, a 10-second time penalty. And there we go. So it's a 10-second time penalty for Sergio Sette Camara for causing a collision and gaining the position as a result of it. And Di Grassi trying to get through on what looked like the Carlin there of Luciano Becchetta. So going back to what I was saying about Fondmetal, they are on the brink of getting 38 championship points, with Mastercard Lola only gaining 19. They'll be extending the gap over them, as we just... well, Di Grassi was trying to make a move on... so it's not Becchetta, it's the Dams Violent of Bortolotti by the looks of it. I think that might be... Or is that Oliver Rowland trying to get through on Nelson Piquet Jr.? Can't quite tell. The gap was 35 points between Fondmetal and Mastercard Lola. As it stands, it will increase to 54 points. As far as where Sack Speed are, and perhaps Dome as well for that respect. Dome would be getting 6 points. Sack Speed at the moment would be getting 0. Dome will move in front of Sack Speed into 4th place. And Dome will go on to 89 points. They'll tie on points Well, they would be tying on points with Pacific if Pacific weren't scoring, but Brendan Hartley is up there in 5th position. So the gap between Fondmetal in the lead and Dome in 4th position, as we see Roland come into the pits with an issue, so that's his race more or less ruined. So that adds another spanner to Zach Speed's problems. Fondmetal will move on to 196 points. Dome will be on 89. So the gap will be 107 points. That is more than the equivalent of two full race scores, or maximum scores for 2 rounds. As we see an off there, that looks like Sergio Sete Camera has gone for a spin on the exit of Hawthorns. Now he needs to be careful he doesn't become an obstacle to the other drivers. He went for the move on Alexander Rossi into the sweeping right-hander, got it all wrong, got on the grass, and spun round quite dramatically. Now is he able to rejoin without any drama here? He's almost becoming a bit of a slalom to get round, or a traffic cone to get round, if you want to call it that. He's got going again though, but needs to watch for Marcus Ericsson, who's just coming through there. And he stayed out of the way, thankfully, but that could have ended in tears for Sete Camera. I don't think he'll get a penalty for that, because I think he did the best he could in that situation, I should say. But Ericsson is through. As we watch Christian Lundgaard go for it into Panicle Bend, and that's an overtake completed on Luciano Picata. Lundgaard up the order. Gary Paffett in P3. We see Mick Schumacher, and there's Oliver Rowland trying to unlap himself from the Mastercard Lola. Now, he is allowed to do that, is Rowland, providing he can pull away. Lucas Di Grassi, he's running in 19th position. And the next driver for Marcus Ericsson to lap is Andre Lotterer in the Andrea Moda, who are now under new management with Danila Savinov taking over the reins from Lucy Ballwood. And that's an off. That's Pascal Wehrlein trying to get through on what looked like Gary Paffett, but he got it all wrong and nearly did the same thing to what Sergio Sete Camera did. He was never alongside, got on the grass. Now once you're in that situation on the grass, the best thing you can do is take your foot off the throttle and just let the car roll through the grass and back onto the circuit. The gap that Ericsson has over Mick Schumacher is 12 seconds now, or 12.8, because Mick Schumacher has been having trouble trying to keep Oliver Rowland, who's a lap car, behind him. I wonder if Rowland has got ahead of Schumacher on the road. Dan Tixon running in 8th place for Real. They came into this round with just 2 points to their name, thanks to Mike Conway picking up both of them. But Dan Tixon's position would move them on to 6 points, as you get 4 points for an 8th place finish. And the gap between Ericsson and Schumacher is 13 seconds. And Schumacher's continuation of Oliver Rowland, in terms of the way that Oliver Rowland is trying to go about his race right now, is continuing. He wants to try and get through on Mick Schumacher. And Mick Schumacher is still having issues, and he's losing time battling with the Zach Speed, even though he shouldn't really have to. And this is not going to go down with team manager Marcus Johansson. And maybe a few words with the Zach Speed team manager Mike Smith afterwards. We're on lap 35 and we're approaching the second round of pit stops. And Ericsson has got a healthy lead at this moment in time. But when does he decide to go for the pits? He'll probably want to go in the pits now. Will Ericsson. And there's Eilert behind Kamiya Sato. And Dome haven't really had too much to celebrate since their famous victory in Fuji. And Sete Camera is coming into the pits from 23rd place. He'll fall behind Oliver Rowland. There's Andre Lotto, who's just been lapped by the leader. Just 2 retirements so far. Alan McNish and Tatiana Calderon are both out as Pascal Wehrlein comes in for his second stop of the race. I think he'll probably fall out of the top 15, given the gaps as they are. Andre Lotto trying to get through on Fabio Lima. Ericsson has also lapped the Swiss. Continuing to make his way through the traffic. Pascal Wehrlein is rejoining 12th position now, so he didn't quite fall out of the top 15. I don't think he's too far behind Rossi after he rejoined. But Ericsson is in from the race lead now. A very healthy lead he had before he came in, so he won't need to worry about Mick Schumacher by any means. There's Oliver Rowland still trying to get through on the Mascot Lola, but Mick Schumacher isn't having any of it. Lima also in the Carlin, as Brendan Hartley heads for pit road, as is Takuma Sato and Jack Aiken likewise. Now, where did Marcus Ericsson rejoin? He rejoined in 3rd place behind Gary Paffett. He isn't too far off him. You can see there it's over 5 seconds off the Brit, so he's got all the time he's got to make up. He may even go for a fastest lap if he's lucky, whilst he's got the track position. As you can see there's a lock-up from Jake Dennis as he looks to defend from the Coloni. We're going to see a replay, and he's coming out of the pit lane. Lundgaard has already gone through. Jake Dennis comes out, and it's Jaime Alguersuari he rejoins into the path of. Now, Dennis stayed within the pit exit line, and Alguersuari didn't quite read that in time. And I don't think there'll be any investigation being made to that. And no, there isn't going to be any, so it's as you were. Ericsson coming around to complete his outlap and perhaps think about going for a fastest lap of the race, because why not? A championship point is up for grabs for that. And there's a move there from Mike Conway on Callum Eilert. And he is through, no problem. And Marcello pits in from 5th position in the Force India. The gaps are coming down quite significantly between Schumacher and Paffett, and I think that must mean that Schumacher is coming into the pit lane. We'll find out in a moment, because we see a move from Sete Camera on Lima, which doesn't quite come off in the end. And yeah, I think Schumacher has got a problem because the gaps have come down quite significantly. He must go into pit road to get the issue sorted out. So Paffett takes the lead from Mick Schumacher, who's gone into the pit lane. So Schumacher's picked up an issue on his lap. He was probably going to be coming into the pits anyway to get his final stop done, but he's lost so much time because of the electrical problem, I'd have thought, that he had before he ducked in. So that's not good news for the Mascot Lola squad. And that will mean he'll lose even further ground to Marcus Ericsson. And what will Wehrlein? I think Wehrlein will stay behind Mick Schumacher. But the gaps will be a lot closer between those two in the closing stages. We're seeing pit stops aplenty with Dixon, PK Jr. Kamir Sato also in. So there's Schumacher, Verline and Hartley in your picture. And Gary Paffett is approaching the end of lap 39 now. Now, how is Marcus Ericsson getting on? Is he going for a fastest lap? I don't think he got the fastest lap in the end on his new tyres. Gary Paffett in from second place. The gap between Paffett and Schumacher was very close before Schumacher came in because of Schumacher's problem. But it looks like Schumacher may well just get out in front unless Gary Paffett has done enough to stay in front of the German. Be a fine way for him to reach second place, but no, it's going to be fourth position as he rejoins. Or is it third? I think he just got in front of Verline as he rejoined. Paffett rejoins in third place ahead of Pascal Verline, who's just been overtaken by Brendan Hartley. I think what's happened is that Verline had to jam on the brakes to avoid Paffett with the brake coming out of the pits, and that allowed Hartley the opportunity to pull alongside and get through. So that's a position lost there for Fondmetal. Rowland pitting in for a third time. He'll rejoin in last position, no problem. Ericsson's lead then is 25 seconds nearly over Mick Schumacher. And Ericsson will be making his way through the traffic as we are heading into the closing stages of this race now. We're on lap 41 out of 56. And there's a move there, or what looked like a move for a moment. That was Lotterer and Lima going through Druids. There we go, side by side. Lima going for it into Druids. Does Lotterer know that he's there? Not really. Don't think any action will be taken on that. Behind Lima is Sete Camera, and no further action is going to be taken on that. As we saw a brief moment of Paffett fending off Hartley into Paddock Hill Bend. And now we are looking at Kamir Sato, who's chasing. Can't quite tell who that is that he's chasing there, but we've seen a pit stop for Mike Conway, and Christian Lundgaard is also in, as is Luciano Piquetta in the Carlin. So Conway will get out behind Bortolotti and Kamir Sato. So he's outside the top 15 is Conway. But the good news for his teammate is that Dixon is able to keep hold of his 8th position. As we see Marcus Ericsson trying to put a lap on the rear of Mike Conway. And Ericsson almost running wide there, trying to lap the rear. This is not doing Conway's race any good, really. He's very reluctant to let the leader go. And Ericsson had to fight his way through to get the move done. Conway is under threat from the Zach speed of Lucas Di Grassi. There is Mick Schumacher, the sole surviving MasterCard Lola, in second place, with Gary Paffett in third, with Alguersuari heading for the pits for his last stop. It looks rather sewn up now between here and the checker flag, unless something goes wrong with any of the cars. Marcello is in 9th place, and Jake Dennis in the Andromeda is in 10th position. They go through Druids. There's Ericsson in the lead still. Win number 3 it will be as it stands. Fondmetal's 5th win of the season. They're 5th in the last 7 rounds as well. There's contact between Lima and Sete Camera going through Surtees. And I think Sete Camera will get another penalty for that, because he gained a position by making contact. Yeah, that's a repeat of what he did before with the other Carlin of Luciano Piquetta. So Sese Camera is going to pick up another time penalty for that, and there is confirmation from the stewards. So as it stands, Sese Camera will fall down to 24th and last place. Now, with the number of runners we've got left in this race, the all-time record for finishes in a Grand Prix World Series race is 23, which is what we achieved in the League 2 event in Istanbul this season. Should there be no more retirements, today we'll break that record. We're on lap 44 now. Ericsson has a 21-second lead over Mick Schumacher. Continuing to make his way through back markers. Gary Puffett in third position in the Ram. This will be Ram's best result of the season, their first podium in the Grand Prix World Series. Brendan Hartley fourth in the Pacific, then it's Pascal Wehrlein. Jack Aiken on course for a good result in 6th. Takuma Sato is 7th in the Dome. Dan Titsum 8th for Real. Rafael Marciello is 9th in the second Force India, and in 10th and in the final points paying position is Jake Dennis in the Andrea Moda. Now we can see this is Lucas Di Grassi fending off Christian Lundgaard through Paddock Hill Bend. Piquetta will join the Giro very quickly. Ericsson carrying on. And there's Lundgaard going for it on the sack speed. Nearly making contact. And he falls back into the clutches of Piquetta. And behind Piquetta is Andre Lotterer. Now, Piquetta and Lotterer started the race from the back of the grid after collisions they were involved in the last race at Dijon-Bourgogne. This is lap 45 of the race. Looking very good for Fondmetal for a 1st and 5th. And behind the quadruplet that you are seeing in your picture should be Jaime Alguersuari. There he is in the background. So it could be a 5-car battle at the moment, but there's a move from Christian Lundgaard, and that's a sensational overtake on Lucas Di Grassi into Paddock Hill Bend. And that's good enough for the Colonians to go up into 17th place. Puffett we are riding on board with in the Ram as Alguersuari lines up a move on Andre Lotterer into Hawthorns, and he goes through as well. Coloni drivers moving up the order in the closing stages of this one. There's Marciello, who's running in 9th ahead of Jake Dennis, both on course for points today. Ericsson's continuing to struggle behind back markers as we speak. As Brendan Hartley is keeping his car on the circuit. He makes his way through Sterling's. Now, Brendan Hartley hasn't finished in the top 4 since round 5 of the championship, which would have been in Kyalami. So he picked up 4 points in the last 3 races. He was the championship leader early on in the campaign, but not anymore. We haven't got long left in this League 2 event. It looks like Ericsson is going to make it 5 wins from 7 for Fondmetal this season, considering their dominance for the campaign. There's Lotterer trying to get through on Piquetta. I think they might have lost a position to the Brit. There are two drivers who will be serving time penalties in the race. Sets the camera is serving 20 seconds. And the other driver, he'll be getting a penalty as well. Just trying to remember off the top of my head who that is. It'll be someone towards the back end of the field, which will be Mike Conway. So Conway will be serving a 10-second time penalty for a collision that he was also involved in. 9 laps remaining. Ericsson's lead is over 20 seconds. It is coming down a little bit, but only by a little bit. But Ericsson's doing a terrific job. Not making any mistakes. He's not made any mistakes since the start. He's coming up behind Callum Ilott now, who's running in 15th. And Ilott will want to stay out of the way of Ericsson, which he does so. But Ericsson's having to fight his way through. Just like he was doing with Mike Conway earlier on. There's Oliver Rowland being lapped by Mick Schumacher. And Degrassi is tussling it out with Bicetta. I think Bicchetta's moving in front of Degrassi now into 19th position. And now we've got another battle on our hands as Rowland looks to make his way through on Lima for 23rd. And we see Gary Puffett continuing on his way in 3rd place, catching Mick Schumacher. And there is Sete Camera getting through on Degrassi rather easy. I think Degrassi's carrying an issue in the Sax Speed, so Sax Speed's race is going from bad to worse now. So Degrassi will be in the pits. He might even try and go for a fastest lap or something, will Lucas Degrassi. Yeah, he's into the pits. And he'll go down to last place. So the top 13 are on the lead lap. Mirko Bortolotti on debut is in 13th position. And we see a problem in the rear, and it's Dan Titsum who's going to be pulling off from 8th place. What a terrible shame for the Brit and for team manager Ed Hunter. One of their best chances of scoring points disappearing. Only the 3rd driver to retire from this race. Titsum goes no further in the Brands Hatch Grand Prix. What a shame. A terrible shame. What must Ed Hunter be feeling right now in the closing stages? Well, Mike Conway is running in 15th position on the road. He'll be serving a 10-second time penalty for contact he made earlier on, which will drop even further back. And there is Mick Schumacher then, trying to make his way through the back markers. The next one is Sergio Sete Camera in the Pacific. As we see Oliver Rowland in the Sax Speed in 22nd place now. Puffett goes through, no problem. Next car behind Rowland is Brendan Hartley. But there's your race leader. Marcus Ericsson is coming up behind Mirko Bortolotti. See Jake Dennis is up to 9th place in the Andro Motor, on course for 2 points. Now Jake Dennis, who's had a topsy-turvy season so far. And looking at how his season has been going, he hasn't scored in the last 3 races. Picks up a 5th place finish in Fuji and a 4th place finish in Kyalami. And Dixon's retirement has also promoted Rafael Marcello up to 8th and Alexander Rossi up to 10th. Now, as far as Dan's Vion is are concerned, if one of the top 10 were to drop out in the closing stages, Nelson Piquet Jr. would inherit that point on his return to the Grand Prix World Series. And here's Mick Schumacher looking good for a second place finish today. As far as the League 2 Drivers' Championship is concerned, with Pascal Wehrlein on course for a 5th place finish, Calderon not scoring, Ericsson on course for 26 championship points, Hartley only getting 12. Marcus Ericsson will move into the lead on 103. Wehrlein will be second on 91, and Hartley will be in third on 85. Calderon will be in fourth on 80. Alexander Rossi, who's running in 10th place in this race, will get 1 point. As it stands, he'll remain in 5th position. You can just see Lima locking up there. And Mick Schumacher, who would get 19 points in this race for getting the fast lap as well as 2nd place, he would move on to 52, which would put him, I think, behind Aitken, but ahead of Kamir Sato, Lucas Di Grassi and co. So I think he'll be in 7th place in the championship, will Mick, after this race, given that he had only arrived in round 5. Piquet running towards the back of the field. He'll just be wanting the checker flag to come out any moment now. And it looks like Ericsson's put a lap on Mirko Bortolotti. And the next driver he'll be lapping will be Nelson Piquet Jr., who I think is another 8 or 9 seconds up the road. So I don't think Ericsson will need to worry about lapping any more cars between now and the checker flag. As we see Brendan Hartley trying to get through on Fabio Lima, which he does so. And we see Mick Schumacher and Dan Titsum, Alan Manish and Tatiana Calderon, the only drivers out of this race so far. It looks like we're going to be equaling the all-time record for most number of finishes in a Grand Prix World Series race. Rossi's trying to get a move done on Jake Dennis for 9th position. This is for points. And if he starts hustling, that might bring Nelson Piquet Jr. into the fray. 2 laps to go then. The gap between Ericsson and Schumacher has come down to 18 seconds. And despite Schumacher's problem earlier on, he's very lucky to keep hold of 2nd in all honesty. You need him to worry. Ram are going to be celebrating their first podium in the Grand Prix Series. Ross McGregor, the team manager, will be delighted with this as we see an off almost there from the Andrea Moda that looks like Andre Lotterer. And he's got Mick Schumacher behind him, of which he won't want to get in the way of. Schumacher goes through ahead of the Andrea Moda as Ericsson begins the final lap of the League 2 Brands Hatch Grand Prix. He will not make any more mistakes from here on in, I wouldn't have thought. Mick Schumacher will be happy with 2nd place. The top 11 are going to be finishing on the lead lap, as we see Rossi trying to get through on Jake Dennis. Doesn't quite pay off, and that's going to allow Piquet Jr. to pull alongside for a moment, but he's had to drop back. Where's Piquet Jr. gone? He looks like he's gone off the road somewhere. And there's an engine problem. That's Jaime Alguersuari in the Coloni. Now, he'll be classified as a finisher, but he won't be finishing in the position where he is. We'll go to the leader. Marcus Ericsson is about to complete the final lap and take a convincing victory and push Fondmetal ever closer to the top flight of the Grand Prix World Series. Marcus Ericsson comes out of clearways onto the Brabham Straight to win the League 2 Brands Hatch Grand Prix in terrific style. Confirmation of Jaime Alguersuari pulling out on the last lap. He'll drop to 23rd place. But we'll go to Mick Schumacher, who crosses over the line in 2nd position. And Mars Lola take another step closer to promotion as well. But there's Gary Puffett. Punches the air in delight. His first podium in the Grand Prix World Series. And the first for Ram. Brendan Hartley bagging some important points for Kevin McMullen's Pacific team in 4th place. Pascal Verlo making it 2 Fondmetals in the top 5. Jet Aiken 6th for Force India ahead of Takuma Sato. Rafael Marciello will be 8th. So Ed Spencer will be very happy with this result. Alexander Rossi getting ahead of Jake Dennis on the last lap to go up into 9th place. So that's 2 points instead of 1 for him. Dennis will pick up the last point for Andrea Moda in 10th place, with Nelson Piquet Jr. the last on the lead lap. But there's your race winner. It's Marcus Ericsson in Brands Hatch in lead 2. Congratulations. Mick Schumacher 2nd ahead of Gary Puffett. It's Brendan Hartley in 4th, Pascal Verlaine 5th, with Jet Aiken in 6th place ahead of Takuma Sato. Rafael Marciello making it 2 Force Indies in the top 8, have Alexander Rossi and Jake Dennis, who round out the point scorers. In 11th position will be Nelson Piquet Jr. on his return to the Grand Prix World Series for Dams Fayant, with his teammate Mirko Bortolotti in 12th, Kamiya Sato ahead of Callum Ilott, Christian Lundgaard in 15th ahead of Mike Conway, who was classified in 16th place after his time penalty. Luciano Piquetta 17th after his time penalty. Oh no, sorry, not after his time penalty. I'm just going to say about Sete Camera. Andre Lotterer, Fabio Lima and Oliver Rowland running out the top 20. And then we go to the last of the runners, Lucas Di Grassi, Sergio Sete Camera and Jaime Alguersuari, who dropped out of the race on the last lap but was classified as a finisher. Dan Tixon, Alan McNish and Tatiana Calderon were the drivers that did not finish the race. Now, if you were to count Alguersuari, that equals the highest number of finishes in a Grand Prix World Series race to what we had in Istanbul a few rounds ago. Mick Schumacher got the point for fastest lap. The point for pole position went to Marcus Ericsson. It's a brilliant day again for Fondmetal, who are looking ever so good and edging ever nearer to promotion to League One for next season. It's time to run down on the championship standings, courtesy of Topher Smith.
Well, a fantastic performance there for Marcus Ericsson, putting Dijon Burgoyne behind him, and now he takes a race victory here in Brands Hatch to move himself into the lead of the Drivers' Championship. He moves up to 103 points ahead of Pascal Wehrlein, his teammate, on 91. The two Fondmetals running 1st and 2nd in the Drivers' standings as we are now past the midpoint of the season. Brendan Hartley is in 3rd on 85 ahead of Tatiana Calderon, dropping down a couple of positions now on 80 points there. Alexander Rossi on 56 ahead of Jack Aiken on 55. Mick Schumacher has moved up to 7th in the championship, now on 52, ahead of Kimiya Sato, Lucas Di Grassi and Takuma Sato. That is your top 10 in the League 2 driver standings after Brands Hatch. Looking at the teams, Fondmetal absolutely running away with it at the moment, 52 points ahead of Mastercard Lola on 194 and 142 for the top 2 teams there. Pacific Grand Prix are on 101, breaking into triple digits for this season. Doma 4th on 89 ahead of Zaxpeed on 85. Force India on 71 ahead of LaRousse on 60. Andrea Moda on 59. Ram Racing on 40. And Scuderia Coloni on 39. Carlin has been shuffled outside of the top 10 after their home Grand Prix today. They won't be too happy about that. But Perry Brown will be doing everything he can in the upgrade window to make sure they get themselves back into that top 10. Now, looking ahead to League One, this is where the majority of the driver changes have happened following the mid-season test at Dijon Burgoyne. So we're going to rattle through these as quickly as possible for you. First off, at Super Aguri, Paul de Resta was banned from the Brands Hatch Grand Prix after he took Sebastian Bourdais out in Dijon Burgoyne. And Formula 2 ace Oliver Behrman will make his Grand Prix World Series debut in Super Aguri in the place of Paul de Resta. At Leighton House, Sebastian Buemi also collecting a race ban after he took out Robin Freins from the French race. Helio Castroneves will be making his return to action this season in his place and will be looking to make an immediate impression and put some points on the board for Leighton House. Nicholas Latifi has picked up his 2nd race ban of the season after, in the closing stages in Brands Hatch, he put Adrian Sutil into the wall at turn 1. And Antonio Giovinazzi will once again be stepping up to fill the vacant seat at BAR. Arrows have made the decision to put Adrian Quaife-Hobbs back into the car for another go in place of Danny Juncadella, who has shown some inconsistent form this season, and Arrow's making that decision to give Quaife-Hobbs another crack at it to evaluate him for the rest of the season. Forty Corsi was impressed with Jehan Daruvala after the mid-season test, and that was enough for Dave Goddard to decide to put him in the car in place of Mahavir Raghunathan for the rest of the season. At Prost, Jean-Eric Verne has stepped into the team in place of Artem Markelov. Tom Cairns and Giacomo Pagliaro have struck a deal after Verne topped the times in the mid-season test, and he will now drive for the Prost team for the rest of the season, with the caveat that he can be recalled at any point in the season should either Antonio Felix da Costa or Nick de Vries not be able to race. At HRT, Nick Yellerly will be given his Grand Prix World Series debut in place of Adrian Sutil. John Monroe wanting to get some more points on the board and feeling like Nick Yellerly, after finishing 5th in the mid-season driver test, will be a better shout for that, and he will give him his debut today at his home race. We'll keep track of his progress as he goes on today. And that is it. That is all of the driver changes, looking through my list here, all of the driver changes that have been confirmed for Brands Hatch today. But before we get underway with the race today, we're going to take a quick look at what the standings are heading into this one. And Scott Dixon has built himself a nice lead of 108 points over Will Power in the Leighton House on 64. He's more than a race win ahead of his rival at the moment, and he will be quite difficult to catch, but everything to play for still with 8 races left to go this season. Antonio Felix da Costa is 3rd in the Minardi on 56, equal on points with Romain Grosjean, who hasn't won a race this season, but consistent point scoring has put him right into the thick of this fight for the top 3 in the championship. Nick de Vries, retiring from the last few races, is on 53 points. He really should be on more than that with the pace he's shown. Sebastian Buemi banned from today's race, but still in the top 6 on 52 points. Equal on points with Pato O'Ward, who became our latest Grand Prix World Series race winner in Dijon-Bourgogne, as he inherited the win from Kamui Kobayashi, who had a 10-second time penalty. Helio Castroneves, who will make his return for a one-off substitution today, is on 37, along with Kamui Kobayashi in 9th, and Robin Freins rounding out the top 10 on 36 points in the Super Aguri. In the team standings, Leighton House still on top on 153 points, only 9 ahead of Simtek. This one's getting quite close at the moment. Simtek on 144, Minardi on 117. Manor are on 93 ahead of Arrows and Super Aguri on 79 and 70 each. Those two have swapped positions quite a few times throughout this season in their fight for 5th place. HRT is on 44 points ahead of Prost on 38, Onyx on 34, and BAR on 23 points. Now, before we get this race underway, a quick look at how the grid shapes up. And once again, Nick de Vries on pole position in the Minardi, but by a very slender margin over Will Power in the Leighton House, who has disrupted the Minardi 1-2 there, bumping da Costa down into 3rd, but those top 3 within a 10th of each other. Very close margins here at Brands Hatch. Sebastian Bourdais in the Onyx is 4th, a 10th behind Nick de Vries there, ahead of Scott Dixon in the Simtek, our championship leader and reigning champion, a quarter of a second off the pace, but looking to move forward back onto the podium again. Pato O'Ward is 6th ahead of Alex Lynn, our top Brit in the League One British Grand Prix here today. Jean-Eric Verne on his return to the grid will line up 8th in the Prost, a fantastic result for him and for Tom Cairns' team. Adrian Quaife-Hobbs on his second outing will be 9th, and Kamui Kobayashi will be 10th on the grid in the Manor. 11th on the grid goes to Alex Palou in the AGS ahead of Sean Galale in the BAR. Helio Castroneves, half a second off the pace, which puts him down in 13th. Such are the small margins of qualifying here. One mistake and you're nearer the back of the grid or in the midfield, and Castroneves would have hoped for a higher position than that, but will line up 13th. Romain Grosjean is in 14th, ahead of Felipe Nasr, doing a really good job in the Midland to be 15th. Nick Yellerly on his debut in the HRT will be 16th, ahead of Antonio Fuoco, Robin Freins, Oliver Behrman on his debut just behind his teammates, and Marco Wittmann in the top 20 in the second Prost. And at the back of the grid, Antonio Giovinazzi in his return in the BAR will be 21st, ahead of Rio Haryanto, Colton Herta and Roy Nassani. Jehan Daruvala on his debut a disappointing 25th and 40 Corsi, and Stoffel Vandoorne will start last, having picked up a back of the grid penalty last time out in Dijon-Bourgogne. Well, there's nothing else left for me to say, ladies and gentlemen. How about we get this racing underway, and to take you through it, once again, is Tom Cairns.
A third pole in a row for Nick De Vries and Minardi. They are in desperate need of some redemption after a difficult last couple of rounds. We await for the 5 red lights to come on, and when they go out, we'll be racing for one last time. This is the League 1 race in Brands Hatch in Kent, United Kingdom. The 5 red lights are on. Lights out, and away we go. De Vries gets off the line well, as does Power, who fends off the second Minardi of Antonio Felix da Costa behind. De Vries leads then into Paddy Gilbert with Power second. It's Da Costa third. Bourdais in 4th position in the Onyx with Pato Award in 5th, as we look for looking at Sean Galeo making a move on the inside. Adrian Graveholz, but he makes contact with Alex Lynn, and he's taking the wheel off the HRT as he goes through. So Lynn is out, and it's causing more mayhem behind as they all exit Druids. And that is Galeo, unfortunately, taking out HRT whilst he was trying to pass Adrian Quavehovs into that corner. And a second wheel came off the HRT as he was hit by the AGS from behind. So Lynn is out on the spot already for HRT. That's one less car for team manager John Munro to be focusing on. But I would expect Sean Galeo to be given a race ban for that, because he was the one that took Alex Lynn out. So we'll wait for confirmation. So it's a disqualification for Sean Galeo and a 1 race ban for the next round in Hockenheim. And now we are looking at Scott Dixon, championship leader, of course, trying to make a move on Pato Award, but not able to get through that time round. Behind Scott Dixon is Jean-Eric Fern, who is returning to the Grand Prix World Series on loan at the Pro Squad from Minardi. He was serving as a reserve driver after he was demoted following the first couple of rounds. But he's been given a chance to throw himself with a feature in the Grand Prix World Series. He is the Season 1 champion after all, and so far within the Pro scene, he's showing why he belongs in this championship. De Vries leads them. Power second. Da Costa, Bourdais, O'Ward, Dixon, Fern, Quavehobbs, Galeo and Kobayashi in the top 10. Now De Vries continuing on. Minardi in desperate need of a strong result today, as we see Da Costa getting through on willpower and up into second place. Minardi 1 and 2 now as they both go through. We were expecting that at some point, and the fact that Da Costa got the job done now is important for his race. As we see Van Dorn, who was one of those starting at the back of the grid after his shenanigans in Dijon-Bourgogne last time out. And there's a rear wing off there. Is that a Prost that's going slowly? That must be Marco Wittmann. Now Wittmann, who was excellent in the last couple of rounds, has lost his rear wing in the opening stages here. He just needs to be careful. He doesn't become an obstacle to the cars behind. It looks like he's stayed out of everyone's way. Although maybe not, because he's rejoined into the path there of Nissany as he goes into Sterling's. Nissany gets through, but Wittmann will be in the pits at the end of the lap for a new rear wing. We're on lap 3 now of the race. De Vries leads ahead of Da Costa. Neither of the two cars making it to the end of the last 2 races. They really are in need of some big points today to close down the gap in the championship, in the championship to the likes of Leighton House and Simtech. And of course, as far as the drivers are concerned, the Drivers' Championship is slipping further and further away from Da Costa and De Vries. And further back, we're seeing Felipe Nasr looking for a move on the sole survivor. And that's Antonio Froco losing the front end of his car, and his race is over on the 3rd lap. Bounced across the grass on his way through Hawthorns, and Antonio Froco is out on the spot whilst he tries to get through on the Midland what looked like Rio Haryanto, and that completely backfired. Froco, the next driver to retire from the race. At least that's one less car for Marco Wittmann to get past. Ryan Ferris down to 1 car already. Onyx have had a season to forget so far with so many reliability issues, but this one is very much driver error. Froco out of the race earlier on. His teammate Sebastian Bourdais is running well though, up in 4th place. As we see Haryanto and Grosjean going to be... And would you believe it? It's a repeat occurrence for Minardi. Antonio Felix da Costa from 2nd place is out. You could have predicted it. You really could have put a bet on it. You really could have gone to the bookies and put a bet on Da Costa retiring from this race. And that's what's just happened. And we're only on lap 4. And there's Vala going off the circuit in the 40 as well. So on his debut in the Grand Prix Series, he is out of the race, I should say. He's parked up at Druids. At least he's not caused any drama behind either. So we've lost 4 cars already from this race. It took until the final lap when we lost 4 cars at the end, although one of them was classified as a finisher in Lead 2. But we are seeing quite a bit of drama already, definitely more drama than what we had in Lead 2. De Vries leads then in the sole surviving Minardi, as Scott Dixon gets through on Pato Award by the looks of it into turn 1. He does it! Scott Dixon, the championship leader, gets through on the arrows of Pato Award, and that's enough to move him up into 4th position behind Sebastian Bourdais. Further back, we are seeing the other Simtech of Stoffel van Dorn going for it on the Midland, and he's able to pull off an overtake on Rio Haryanto. So Van Dorn also moving up a position. As we see Will Power in 2nd place for Leighton House. His teammate for this round, Helio Castroneves, is in P11 behind the AGS of Alex Palou. And ahead of Palou is Kamui Kobayashi in the Manor. Sean Galeo, who's running in 8th place, is carrying a disqualification over him, which would mean, as it stands, Castroneves would inherit the final point. Nick Yellerly is someone to mention, actually, who's in the sole surviving HRT in this race, is running in P12 on his debut in the Grand Prix World Series. So that's a fine effort from him. Can he make it to the end and maybe bag a points finish for HRT? As we see Jean-Eric Verne behind Pato Award in the battle for what is 5th position now. Bourdais, who is running in P3. Still chasing. And that is Robin Frines behind Rio Haryanto. And behind Frines is his teammate, who is also making his Grand Prix World Series debut. That is Ollie Behrman, who is substituting for the suspended Paul de Resta. And it's the first round that Paul de Resta isn't competing in his entire Grand Prix World Series career since he started out in Season 1. And there is Will Power, nearly 5 seconds behind Nick de Vries at the head of the pack. As Robin Frines goes for it on the Midland, providing he gets the car slowed down, which he does so. And Super Aguri are going to have their hands full. It's going to be a long race for them. You'll have to hope for misfortune of others to rescue their race. Now, Onyx's best result this season came at the opening round in Malaysia, where Bourdais and Nakajima brought their cars home in 5th and 10th places respectively. They've yet to have a podium this season. They could do with one to just bridge themselves further away from the drop zone. And Nick de Vries continuing on. The race is beginning to calm down now a little bit. We're on lap 7 as Robin Frines goes for a move on the Midland, nearly making contact. He stays in there, stays in the slipstream of the Midland by the looks of it, unless Ollie Behrman has something to say on that. There's Bourdais in P3, ahead of Scott Dixon. As Ollie Behrman unable to find a way past. As we see Sean Galeo about to lose a position by the looks of it to Kamui Kobayashi. And Kobayashi is through into Paddock Hill Bend. And that's enough to send Sean Galeo down the order. It's been a poor race from BIR in this one. They're just above the drop zone by 8 points coming into this race. And with Palou in 10th place. Hertha is outside the top 15 at the present moment. So it's only a gain of 1 point, but that could still come crucial at the end of the season. In fact, Palou would move up a position because of Galeo's disqualification, so that's even worse for BAR. Antonio Giovinazzi, who's substituting for the suspended Nicolas Latifi, is outside the top 15, and Castroneves, who's substituting for the suspended Sebastian Buemi, is in P11, which would eventually become P10. And Robin Frines not able to get through still on Haryanto. There is Power, maintaining the gap over De Vries. He's beginning to pull away from Sebastian Bourdais. The question is, can De Vries get his car to the checker flag, unlike Da Costa? And Grosjean under threat there from Felipe Nasr in the Midland. Midland had a race to remember last time out in Dijon-Bourgogne. Both of the cars coming home in the points, which has given team manager Alex Johnston a massive boost. They're on 8 points, second from bottom, 15 points from safety. And boy, could they do with another points haul today. There is Bourdais running in third place, ahead of Scott Dixon, who's 1.5 seconds off the Onyx. O'Ward in fifth. Thanks Jean-Luc Verne in the Prost, doing a stellar job in sixth. As it stands for Prost, if Verne was to remain in P6, that would net them 8 championship points, which would put them onto 46, and they would go in front of HRT. They would drop a place behind Onyx because of Bourdais running up there in third place. But it's still a healthy situation for the likes of HRT, Prost and Onyx, who are doing well in this one. BAR are most certainly not. AGS are having a better time of it in this one, and perhaps in the last race when Alex Palou brought his AGS home in 5th place. And I think one team were very much destined for the job are 40. Although they're only a couple of points behind Midland, the performances haven't been great. And the only driver from the team that's in the race is Roy Nassani, who's running in 21st position. And there's Giovinazzi in the BAR. He's able to, well, it looks like it was going to be up the inside there of Colton Herta for a moment, but Herta was able to resist. And so the American stays ahead of the Italian for the time being. De Vries in P1, maintaining that 5-second margin over the Australian Will Power. Further back, we are looking at Felipe Nasr's rear wing, and Stoffel van Dorn is closing in on him. There's Bourdais ahead of Dixon. What a result this would be for Ryan Ferris and his team. Froco out of the race, but Bourdais running very strongly in 3rd position. And there's Galeo trying to get through on Kamui Kobayashi. But now Alex Palou is looking to make a move of his own, as they're coming towards the end of the lap that they are on. Nick De Vries, Formula 2 champion in 2019, Formula E champion in 2021. And we are seeing a move from Alex Palou up the inside of Sean Galeo, and he wasn't going to wait around for any longer. That is him through into 9th place and on course for 2 championship points. There is Bourdais. Ahead of Dixon. Now, as it stands in the championship, if the positions were to remain as they are, Scott Dixon would collect 12 championship points, which would move him on to 120. And Will Power, who's running in 2nd place, would close down the gap because he's ahead of Dixon in this one. Power would move on to 82, so the gap would come down from 44 to 38. And there's an off there. That is Giovinazzi, who's had a spin on the exit of Hawthorns. And he's pointing the oncoming traffic. Now, he went for a move on Colton Herta, which is what he tried to do on the previous lap, but didn't quite pay off. This was even worse. And you can see Roy Nassani going through ahead of him. And Giovinazzi will get the car pointing the right way, and he will rejoin in 21st position ahead of Marco Wittmann. Here's Felipe Nasr behind Romain Grosjean, who seems to be off the pace today, Grosjean, compared to what we've seen from him in recent races. Perhaps the manner isn't well suited to this track. Da Costa is not going to be scoring today, and Grosjean, who's outside the points, isn't going to be scoring today. Nyck de Vries at the moment will be. He's on course for 27 championship points. If you were to include the points for the pole position and the fastest lap, he would go up to 3rd place in the championship on 80. And Pato O'Ward, who's running in 5th place in this race, he'll move on to 62 points, which will move him in front of Buemi, Grosjean and Da Costa, who go up into 4th place. But there is Bourdais running in 3rd place, still ahead of Dixon, who's gradually closing down the gap. Kobayashi looking for a move on Quay Fobbs into turn 1. Can't quite do it there. And Verne is pulling further away ahead of them. As we see Will Power in P2, 4.6 seconds off the lead over de Vries. So at least de Vries isn't exactly pulling away from the Leighton House. Kobayashi line up a move on Quay Fobbs, and he's done it into Hawthorns. What about Galeo on Palou? He wasn't able to make the move at the same time, so he has to sit back for now. That was a good move there from Kobayashi. Moves him up to 7th place. As we see Palou attempting an audacious manoeuvre on Quay Fobbs, which doesn't quite pay off. We're getting close to the first round of pit stops now, so who's going to be the first to blink? Or the first to head for the pits? There's Palou ahead of Galeo. I think Galeo's trying to make a move on Palou, which doesn't come off in the end. Now looking at the team's championship, as it stands, Leighton House, who are in the lead, would collect 19 championship points if you were to take into consideration of Castroneves, as Frines comes into the pits. They would get 19 points from this. Simtek, who are on course for 4th place, they would only get 12. So Leighton House would extend their gap over them. Minardi, who have got de Vries in the lead, and just looking at Sean Galeo, who's dropped back from Palou. Minardi will get 27 championship points, so to close in on Simtek and Leighton House. And Mana would, at the moment, drop further back. At least Arrows are looking good with their 2 drivers, with O'Ward 5th and Quay Fobbs in 8th. They would close in, but not go in front of Mana. The gap is 4.1 seconds between de Vries and Will Power, and that's because de Vries is stuck in traffic. He's behind Robin Frines, who has just pitted. And there is Marco Wittmann, who is behind de Vries on the road. The gap is 4.2 seconds now between de Vries and Power. And I wonder when de Vries is heading for the pit lane. Well, it's not this lap he's heading in. So the gap between Bourdais and Dixon is less than 1.3 seconds. There's Power in 2nd place in the Leighton House, looking good for a good result. 4 seconds is the margin, but he's going to be coming up to the traffic, I'd have thought, very soon, as Colton Herter heads to the pits in the AGS. .1 seconds is the gap now as he makes his way through Sterling's. As De Vries is still stuck behind Frines. Now what is Power going to do? Is he going to take the opportunity to come in and attempt an undercut? Or is he going to wait out a little bit longer before he heads in? He's going to wait out for a little bit longer, I think, until he actually does catch up to the back markers. As Colton Herter gets out in front of Marco Wittmann, no problem. So that's one less worry for Nick De Vries to be worried about. We'll see Alex Palou heading into the pits now in the other AGS. It's been a decent upturn in fortune for AGS, but has that arrived too late? With 7 races to go after this one, I wouldn't have thought so. Nazo is also in the pits for Midland. No. De Vries is still behind Frines. As we look at Nick Yellerly, who's 11th on the road. Hasn't pitted yet. In place of Adrian Sutil. As De Vries comes in for his first stop from the lead. So he's had enough of being stuck behind Robin Frines, who's a lap behind him. Bourdais also coming in, as is O'Ward. Verne will go up into 3rd place on track. And De Vries will rejoin behind Adrian Quaife-Hobbs, but ahead of Nick Yellerly. So I think De Vries has actually come out in some clean air as Van Don comes into the pits. Jean-Eric Verne on his return after missing the last 6 races is running in a good 3rd place, a strong 3rd place in the Prost, but he's yet to come in for a pit stop. Behind Verne is Kamui Kobayashi, who's another 4 seconds back. I think all Verne wants is a clean race here without any problems whatsoever. Verne in P3 as Palou just to keep his car on the circuit. He's only just pitted as the Spaniard. Adrian Quaife-Hobbs comes in from 6th place, so De Vries won't need to battle it out with him on track. And there is Will Power. He's in front of the lapped Marco Wittmann. As we look to see Julio Castroneves, who has just pitted, make a move on Roy Nassani into Paddock Hill Bend, and that's enough for him to get an overtake completed. And 40's miserable season continues. It's Pato Award behind the Super Aguri of Ollie Berman, who hasn't stopped yet either. And the race leader, Will Power, comes in. Dixon will take over. What about Jean-Eric Verne? Is he going to go into 2nd place as well? Or is he heading for the pits? He's heading for the pits, is Verne. Kobayashi will go up into 2nd place. And Nick De Vries has posted a new fast start, a 1 minute 8.6, which is fractionally faster than what he had posted previously. Making the most of the fresh tyres to good effect. And Verne is going to rejoin behind Bourdais, because Bourdais was ahead of Verne before the pit stops had started. And I think he's got out in front of O'Ward as Verne. He has done, because O'Ward has been stopped behind Berman. So that, the timing of the pit stop for Verne has paid dividends. He's now ahead of O'Ward on merit. That's a genuine change for position. There's Kamui Kobayashi in 2nd position in the manor, with Grosjean back in 14th place after his pit stop. And Wittmann in for the 2nd time, and this one is down in last place anyway. Dixon also comes in from the race lead. And Kobayashi is also heading for pit road, which will see De Vries take back the net race lead. So Kobayashi in. Power will go into second place. Bourdais will go back into third place. And what about Jean-Eric Verne? Because he pitted in before Dixon. I don't think he's going to get in front of Dixon though, is Verne. In fact, Dixon is in front of Bourdais now. Dixon staying out longer has paid off for him. He's now in a net third place ahead of the Frenchman. And Adrian Quaife-Hobbs' timing of his pit stop has cost him horribly. He's now behind Sean Galeo. 8.7 seconds is the gap between De Vries and Power. That's round about double to what the gap was before the pit stops had started. And Power's race isn't going any further. He's out after 21 laps of this race. It's a bad dent to his title challenge as well. It's great news for Scott Dixon, but for Will Power, his race has ended in retirement with a suspension failure. And it's not looking good for Leighton House's team's championship chances either. Will Power retires from second place. More points down the drain for Chris Cavani's team. It's great news for Minardi and Simtek. As we see Helio Castroneves run wide. Now, did he damage his car as he went over the grass at Paddock Hill Bend? We're going to get a replay of it now. If he has done so, then that's Leighton House's race effectively finished. And luckily, he was able to keep the car intact and not needing to head for another pit stop. There is Bourdais in third place now. And Jean-Eric Verne in the Prost in fourth position. Pato Ward fifth, Komori Kobayashi sixth, Alex Palou up to seventh for AGS. Sean Galeo currently holding eighth, will be excluded from the race results, which would promote Adrian Quaife-Hobbs. Oh, there's contact made between Yellowy and Van Dorn though. Now, Yellowy gets through, but that was very nearly a horrendous accident at Hawthorns. Yellowy going for the move on the Belgian. But no, that was a clumsy overtake from Yellowy. That was never going to work. And so he will get a time penalty for that. Will the HRT driver. There's a 10-second time penalty, so wherever Yellowy ends up, 10 seconds will be applied to his race time. We're going back to what I was saying about Galeo. He will be excluded from the race result, which will promote Adrian Quaife-Hobbs, Helio Castroneves, and Felipe Nasr up a position and into the points. Now, this could change quite drastically as far as the bottom or the race for survival is concerned. As it stands with Palou in 7th place and Nasr potentially on course for a point. AGS would move on to 21 points, 2 behind BAR, and Midland will get a point. There'd be 14 points from safety. So AGS's fortunes are really beginning to fall in their favour. For BAR, it's going from bad to worse. And this is the team's champions from Season 1. There's Nick De Vries, continuing on in the Minardi. He's now 15 seconds clear over second place Scott Dixon. He just needs to bring the car home now, pretty much. Now, Minardi, looking at their record this season. They've celebrated victory on 3 occasions. Felix da Costa coming out on top in Yongam and Istanbul. De Vries doing the same in Fuji. This would be their 4th win of the season. And Harrianta heads for the pit lane in the Midland. There's Bourdais in the Onyx. Now in terms of how that affects Onyx and Prost, Onyx were on course for 15 points, that would move on to 49. Prost were on course for 12, that would move them on to 50. Which will see them pull further away from the drop zone as it stands. Well, Scott Dixon is stopped behind traffic now. Well, he's approaching traffic. There's Dixon running in P2, on course for 18 championship points, on course to extend his lead at the top with Will Power out for the second race running. 18 points would give Dixon, well, put Dixon on 126, and with De Vries on course for the victory right now, as well as pole position and fast lap points, he'll go up to 80 and move up into second place in the standings. Dixon will be 46 points clear at the top. Arriving into this race, he was 44 points off the top, so it's still a big gap. It's just that there's a different driver in second place. There's Dixon putting a lap on Marco Wittmann, who's had a lonely race so far after he needed to come in for a new rear wing at the end of lap 2. And there's Galeo trying to make a move on the AGS of Palou, but doesn't quite come off there. And there's a problem for Kobayashi. That's the manner out of the race. He's had a big shunt as he tried to pull off. That's a big shunt there. Stays out of the way of the traffic. That's a wild one. Engine fire there. Might be an oil leak for Kobayashi. But yeah, that's just spun around on his own oil there. But at least he's out of harm's way. Kobayashi out of the race in the manner. And that's good news for the likes of Palou, for Quaife Hobbs, for Castroneves, for Nasser. Grosjean, as it stands, will go up into the points because of Galeo's disqualification. But it's a retirement, unfortunately, for Kamui Kobayashi. Now, we've just seen an overtake from Castroneves on Quaife Hobbs into turn 1. And that's enough to move him up to 8th place on track. And there's De Vries putting a lap on Roy Nissany as they go through Dingledale. Well, Dixon is doing the best he can to close in. There's Galeo going for it again on Palou into Hawthorns. And the more he keeps doing that, the more he'll allow Castroneves and Quaife Hobbs to close in. We're at the halfway point now. 6 drivers are out of the race. Kamui Kobayashi, Will Power, Antonio Felix da Costa, Jehan Duravala. We also lost Alex Lynn at the start. And there's one more driver we also lost from this race. That was Antonio Froco, who we lost on either the second or the third lap. But there is Sebastian Bourdais in 3rd place, looking good for his best result of the season. Jean-Eric Verne likewise. As we see Ollie Behrman pulling off a move on Colton Herta into turn 1. He's made the move stick. Excellent move there from the debutant. And Dixon is continuing to cut down the gap on De Vries. The gap is 13 seconds. Well, let's see what the gap is as he crosses over the line. You can see that it's 13.1. There's Dixon. The car handling nicely. The reliability seems to be better for Simtek this season in comparison to last season, despite taking the Drivers' Championship. As it stands, they will take the lead of the Teams' Championship. There's De Vries getting held up there by one of the BARs, that's Antonio Giovinazzi, who's competing in his second race this season. He's substituted for Nicholas Latifi in Fuji. Didn't last very long in the race though, due to mechanical gremlins. At least he's gone a lot further this time around though, in place of the Canadian. And the gap between De Vries and Dixon's come down to 12.5 seconds, and that was because De Vries got held up by the BAR. We're on lap 31. De Vries looking good for the victory, but will the car last? That's the £1 million question. There's Bourdais ahead of Verne. The gap between those two is 1.6 seconds. And as it stands with Palou running in 6th place, and Galeo not going to be keeping his 7th position because of taking out Alex Lane at the start. BAR and AGS will be level on points, but BAR will still be ahead on countback. So they will still be ahead of AGS, only just though. And that was because of the 4th place finish they got in Malaysia. Now here's Bourdais ahead of Dixon. The gap is coming down to 12.3 seconds between De Vries and Dixon. But it won't be too long, I wouldn't have thought, but, before Dixon is having to make his way through the back markers as well. You can see Galeo trying to get through on the AGS of Palou still, but Castroneves is closing in behind. There's Bourdais in P3. He's nearly 10 seconds behind Dixon. Won't be too fussed about that though, because he knows that the Simtek and the Minardi ahead are in much quicker cars. And Verne is gradually into the gap of Bourdais, but I say very, very slowly. Vries is carrying on his way. Doesn't seem to have any back markers ahead of him that he needs to be worried about. Just concentrate on the driving all the way through. Don't know when his second stop will be, as we watch Galeo again going for it on Palou, and he's got through on him this time. So Galeo is through on the Spaniard, although it's little celebration because he knows he's going to be excluded from the race results anyway. But in terms of racecraft, this is still excellent stuff and what we should have been seeing from Galeo anyway. As Haryanto makes a move on Marco Wittmann into Paddock Hill Bends. He's having to sit in behind for now. Wittmann ahead of the Indonesian. On that 34, De Vries continuing on his way. This would be his second win of the season, should he see it out. That's just the drivers are focusing on the job in hand here. Hockenheim is next up, which will be on the old configuration, which is what was used last season. It worked out rather nicely for the drivers and for the team managers. So it will be that configuration being used. And there's Bourdais ahead of Dixon in the fight for third position. 1.3 seconds is the margin between the pair. As we watch Robin Friends, who's in P14, touching the grass as O'Ward pits in from 5th place. And he'll rejoin behind Van Dorn. And it looks like Van Dorn may well be heading to the pits himself. Yes, he is. So O'Ward will get out in 12th place, ahead of Friends, and in some clean air. As we watch Antonio Giovinazzi making his way through Sterling's. He's currently in P17. And De Vries, the race leader, comes in. Now is Dixon coming in at the same time, or is he going to be staying out there for another lap? He's staying out for another lap, is Dixon. And Bourdais, is he going to get through on De Vries? I think he'll just get ahead of him just. As will Verne. De Vries rejoins in 4th place. As Galeo comes in from P7 as well, or P5 as it would have been. Nasser also in. Back with Scott Dixon, who's temporarily in the lead. Just saw in the background there will be a back marker, so we'll make the most of the track position before he catches up to it. As we can see the Super Aguris. And there's Berman on the inside of Friends into Paddock Bend. There's no change there. And Nasser rejoins in 15th place behind Colton Herter. You can see the Frenchman in the Onyx coming through clearways. As he crosses over the line to start another lap, he's in 2nd place as Wittmann pits in for the 3rd time. He's had a race to forget, but at least he'll get to the checker flag. We are with Jean-Eric Verne, who's running in 3rd place on track. He was in 4th before the 2nd round of pit stops had begun. Pelot pits in the AGS. As Verne comes out of Surtees and continuing to close in on Bourdais. The gap is 1.1 seconds. So Verne comprehensively the quicker of the two cars, but the Onyx is the one that is ahead on track. It could come down to track position when the pair pits in, unless they both pit in on the same lap. As Herter is carrying an issue in the AGS, and it's going to be yet another retirement for the American. So he is out of the race, and he has got to hope that doesn't happen to Alex Pelot either, who's running a strong race again. Here's Bourdais. He's having to adhere to the yellow flags for the time being, but Herter's car is now cleared. As far as Herter's season is concerned, that is the 5th retirement of his campaign. He's only picked up 1 point. That came in Sensul. And there's Verne in P3, just ahead of De Vries, who's just pitted. The gap is 1 second. I wonder when he'll decide to pit in. As he and Bourdais make their way through Dingledale and Sterling's. I think at least one of them will pit in. Well, Dixon's in the pits. What about Bourdais and Verne? They are both deciding to stay out as we watch De Vries make a move on Jean-Eric Verne as they go through Pedicle Bend, and that move was going to be happening all along. De Vries ahead of Jean-Eric Verne, as Dixon will rejoin in 4th place ahead of Castroneves. In fact, Castroneves is in the pits, which promotes Adrian Quaife-Hobbs up a position, Nick Yellerly in at the same time. And I think De Vries is looking to make a move on Sebastian Bourdais as they approach Hawthorns, and this is going to be an easy overtake for De Vries, and the horsepower advantage paying off. It's helping the Minardi so much. Certainly in the short term, but in the long term, is that helping the team? Well, it had done in the last couple of rounds. They've got to hope it's not 3 strikes, you're out, that type of thing. And Sani pits in the 40. He's just hoping to get to the end of this one. And hope that the upgrade window helps the team who are in need of some points. Arianto also in the Midland. So De Vries back into the race lead now. As we watch Sean Galeo trying to make a move on Ollie Berman for 8th place on track. As De Vries continuing on ahead of Bourdais and Verne. The gap between those two has come down to less than 7 tenths. As we see, well, Alex Below trying to get through on Sean Galeo. As Berman is in the pits now from what was 8th place. Van Don unable to get through on Giovinazzi. As we see Bourdais and Verne pitting in at the same time now. Now, how will this one play out? Well, we've cut away from those two coming in as De Vries continues in the race lead. Dixon will go back into 2nd place. And in 3rd place, is Quaife-Hobbs coming in, or is he staying out for another lap? I think he's in. Here's Quaife-Hobbs, as is Grosjean. So where will Bourdais and Verne come back out here? Well, Verne has lost the position to Patrick O'Ward. So Verne is back behind O'Ward now, in 5th position. Galeo's moved up to 6th in the pit stops, Pelot 7th. Nasser is up to 8th place now, ahead of Castroneves and Quaife-Hobbs. So by pitting in earlier, Nasser's new tyres have helped him gain a few more positions. And that's significant, because if Galeo's disqualification was to stand, Pelot would get 8 championship points for AGS, and Nasser would get 6 for Midland. And as far as the bottom 3 is concerned, or the bottom 4, with Onyx and Prost bridging further away, Midland will go on to 14 championship points. AGS would get 23. BAR have got their work cut out now in the second half of the season to make sure they stay in League One. Well, there is Dixon, who's 14 seconds off the lead. Doesn't look like he's going to be able to challenge that. So 2nd place will have to do for him, unless something happens to De Vries up front. Six retirements so far, 20 still going. As we see Sebastian Bourdais in 3rd, Patrick O'Ward in 4th, just ahead of Verne, but Verne is on the fresher tyres. So he may be able to make a move in the closing stages. And there's Sean Galeo. He'll be at smooth in the race results as it stands for taking out Alex Lynn at the start. Alex Lynn has had a very unlucky season so far. He's been taken out by Will Power in Yongam. He had also been taken out by Danny Kafia in Istanbul. So this will be the third occasion this season they've been taken out by another driver. "13 seconds is the margin. Dixon really eating into the gap of De Vries. Dixon did pit in later than De Vries, remember. And Vern is now ahead of O'Ward, for your information. So Vern has got past the Mexican and has got back up into 4th place. Excellent overtake by Vern. Unless O'Ward is carrying an issue, because he's now over a second behind the Frenchman. Which could spell bad news for Topher Smith's Aeros team. The gap is now 1.4, so may not be that O'Ward is carrying an issue, it's just that Vern got past him and O'Ward had to lift off the power to make sure they didn't make contact. Bourdais looking very good for a podium in 3rd place. Ahead of him there is the Midland of Rio Haryanto, who's at the back of the pack. His 100% point scoring record is about to come to an end, unfortunately. And there's Dixon. 2nd place. 18 championship points coming his way. With De Vries on course for the victory, pole position and fastest lap. The gap would be 46 points in Dixon's favour. And De Vries will go up into 2nd place in the championship. And there's a move there from Ollie Berman on his more illustrious teammate, Robin Frines. Goes up to 14th place on the track, which will be 13th once Galeo's disqualification has been applied. Dixon pushing on. He wants to push De Vries into a mistake. Neves running in 9th, 8th as it stands. Only in place of Sebastian Buemi, but he has done a reasonably good job considering the circumstances. And De Vries is stuck behind the Super Aguris now. First up is Frines, and shortly it will be Berman. So they're coming out of clearways now. De Vries should go ahead of Frines before Paddock Hill Bend. And just so no problem. Frines lifting off the throttle to allow the Minardi to go past. I'd imagine Dixon will cut down the gap a little bit, although maybe not. There's Christian Neves running wide now. And he was able to rejoin the track. He tried to make a move on Nazar into Hawthorns, but the move backfired. So he ended up on the grass there, and he almost lost the position to Adrian Quaife Hobbs. Now, Nick Yellerly, who had picked up a time penalty for the contact he had made earlier on, would only lose 1 position to Stoffel van Dorn. As we see Quaife making a move on Cash Neves as they go towards Paddock Hill Bend. And the pair get through safe and sound. That was very nearly an overtake there, or even a collision between the Brazilian and the Brit. Now Sebastian Bourdais is still running in 3rd place ahead of Jean-Luc Vergne. It's got the gap down to 1.4 seconds. Not a lot of time left in the race, but you never know. 11.6 seconds is the gap between De Vries and Dixon. It is coming down a little bit, but it's not enough for Dixon to even think about taking the lead of the race with 10 laps remaining. There is Cash Neves ahead of Quaife Hobbs in the battle for 9th place on track. Grosjean is getting into the fight here. There is is De Vries continuing on his way. He's got Ollie Behrman in front of him. I think once he gets by Behrman, I think that'll be the last back marker he'll need to negotiate. As Haryanto and Wittmann go into combat. This is for... In fact, this is not... I think that's Wittmann. Is it Wittmann behind? I think that might be Vern, actually, of which he's trying to lap Haryanto. Yeah, it is. It's Vern trying to lap Haryanto. And Haryanto is behind Wittmann in terms of the race positions. So Vern will be annoyed with that. As Wittmann is... Now this is going to be interesting. Wittmann is ahead of Bourdais on the circuit. But is he going to allow Bourdais through easy? I think he is. So Wittmann having to yield to his... Well, that's to the Frenchman, I should say. The next car behind him will be his compatriot and... Oh, sorry, will be his teammate, Jean-Eric Verne. And there is De Vries, still stopped behind the Super Aguri of Ollie Behrman. And Dixon is 11 seconds with 8 laps to go. It's looking good for another victory for Minardi. We saw this before in Misano, where Antonio Felix da Costa was dominating up until the last 5 laps when his gearbox had packed up, or the suspension packed up, and he was having to pull to the side. Minardi came away with virtually nothing that day. They really need a good haul of points today to rebound from what happened in Misano and Dijon-Bourgogne. Well, Dixon is looking good for a second place finish in the Simtech. And De Vries is finally through on Behrman. Not waiting around any longer. As we see Grosjean going for it on Quaif Hobbs for 10th place on track. Not able to get through this time around. It's looking good for Minardi right now as Simtech are looking good for a second place finish. Stoffel van Don isn't making up enough ground at the moment to think about getting into the points. He'll go in front of Nick Yellerly once Yellerly's time penalty is applied, but that's about it for Van Dorn. Grosjean is still struggling to get through on Quaif Hobbs. Now Bourdais in 3rd position, looking good for Onyx's first podium of the season. Well, Verne is trying to lap his teammate Marco Wittmann. Wittmann will obviously need to watch out for Haryanto, of which he's battling for position with. 19 are still running in this one. Colton Herter, Kamui Kobayashi, Will Power, Antonio Felix da Costa, Jehan Duravala, Antonio Fuoco, and Alex Lynn out of the race. Now Van Dorn, as it stands, will go up into 11th position once all the penalties and disqualifications have been applied, but he'll want to carry on his way in case something happens in the final 6 laps of this. And De Vries is now only 10 seconds clear of Dixon. Dixon, keeping the gap as it is. Now De Vries will be coming up behind Van Dorn not too soon, although I think there's a big gap between those two cars, of which De Vries won't be able to catch up to before the checker flag, so I think De Vries will be fine from here on in. Dixon is not giving it up. Super Aguri cars are looking like they're going to be finishing outside the points again. Now, as it stands, Minardi will take the lead, or Simtek will take the lead of the team's championship, with Dixon getting 18 championship points. We'll move on to 162. Leighton House will be getting 4 points because of Castroneves getting 8. That would put them onto 157. And Minardi by getting 27 points, with De Vries getting the win, fast lap and pole position. 144 they will be on. So the race for the team cycle is very much heating up, as is the race to beat the drop. The gap is less than 10 seconds as De Vries not pushing too hard. I think that's Adrian Guayhols who tried to make a move on Castroneves at Dingledale, and now he's fallen back into the clutches of Romain Grosjean in the Manor. There he goes. Grosjean up the inside of the arrows, and I think this is going to be a change for position here. And Grosjean goes through ahead of Quaife Hobbs. So that's another point going in the way of Manor and for Sam Hall. Grosjean up to what is effectively 9th position. Quaife Hobbs will have to settle for a point, which will be his first in the Grand Prix Series. And as we see, Harriento and Wittmann going to combat. And this is for 18th position. Wittmann trying to chase after Nissani, but he's running out of laps to catch the Israeli. And there is O'Ward getting through on Harriento to lap. Dixon, 9.1 seconds off the pace on De Vries, with 3 laps to go. And there's Bourdais going through on Nissani to lap, and I think Wittmann is quite some way behind Nissani, thinking of it. Dixon continuing to push on lap 55 as he starts the 55th lap. 9.1 seconds is the margin. Coming out of Druids, Dixon's championship is edging ever nearer. De Vries, he's very much keeping himself in the hunt. If he drops out of this now, then that is very much game, set and match as far as Dixon's title chances are concerned, because we'll just have too healthy of a lead over everyone else. As Castroneves is trying to get past the Midland of Felipe Nasr in the closing stages. Bourdais running in P3. And the final lap has been started by Nick De Vries now. Very close to the checker flag, and for Minardi to celebrate. Team manager Giacomo Pagliaro is getting ready to celebrate as we watch Castroneves go for a move on Felipe Nasr. And is the overtake completed here? The answer is no, it has not been completed. Felipe Nasr is able to hold him off. This has been some drive by Felipe Nasr again in the Midlands. As Dixon is closing up behind Robin Freins, but we are on the final lap anyway. We'll go to the race leader because Nick De Vries hasn't put a foot wrong from the start. He has dominated from start to finish. He had a scare once Antonio Felix da Costa had dropped out with mechanical problems, but De Vries has been able to keep his car going all the way to the finish. Out of clearways for the last time, Nick De Vries takes his second Grand Prix World Series win. He wins the League One Brands Hatch Grand Prix. Excellent performance. Minardi back on top here in Great Britain. Scott Dixon comes home in second place. That's more points towards the championship, with Will Power and co dropping out. With 7 rounds to go, he's very much firm favourite to win it. Sebastian Bourdais bags his and Onyx's first podium of the season, and what a return for Jean-Eric Vergne in the Pros. 4th place for him. And then we go back to Pato Award, more points for him. Not quite the victory, but still more points for Topher Smith and for the Arrow squad. Sean Galeo would be 6th, but will be disqualified from the race for his collision that took out Alex Lynn at the start. So Alex Player will be 6th, Felipe Nasr 7th. Roman Grosjean got ahead of Castroneves on the last lap because Castroneves had encountered a problem. So Grosjean will be 8th, Quavov's 9th, and Castroneves pulls off before the line with mechanical gremlins. What a disaster for Leighton House. It couldn't have got any worse for them today. Castroneves loses 8th place before the line. So Grosjean will be 8th, Quavov's 9th, and Van Dorn will be promoted to the last point in 10th place. So a rundown on the race finish. Nick De Vries wins ahead of Scott Dixon. Sebastian Bourdais for Onyx in 3rd place. Jean-Eric Vergne bagging more points for Prost in 4th. Pato Award 5th. Alex Palou more points at AGS in 6th. Felipe Nasr for Midland in 7th. Had a Roman Grosjean for Manor in 8th. Adrian Quavobs bagging his first points in 9th. And Nick Yellerley just beating Stoff Van Dorn to the final point in 10th place on debut. Van Dorn in 11th and the last driver on the lead lap. Helio Castroneves classified in 12th. Ollie Behrman 13th. Robin Freins ahead of Antonio Giovinazzi, Roy Nissany, Marco Wittmann and Rio Haryanto were the rest of the finishers. Colton Herter, Kamui Kobayashi, Will Power, Antonio Felix da Costa, who we lost earlier on, Jehan Duravala, Antonio Froco and Alex Lynn did not finish. Sean Galeo, who finished 6th on track, was disqualified for taking out Alex Lynn at the start. The pole position and the fast lap points went to Nick De Vries and for Minardi. Well, for Scott Dixon, the championship is edging ever nearer for him. And what a day for Simtech and for Minardi. For Leighton House, it has been a race of a nightmare for them. Or a nightmare of a race, I should say. How does that affect the championship standings? I'll leave that for Topher Smith to run down. And I'll see you next time out in Hockenheim.
Well, that was a much needed result for the Minardi team. Nick De Vries bringing home the victory and putting himself right back into his title fight, as well as bringing Minardi some much needed points as well. We lost Antonio Felix da Costa earlier on in the race, which I'm sure will have put the fear into Giacomo Pagliaro for the race, but Nick De Vries doing a fantastic job and nursing his Minardi to bring home the goods here at Brands Hatch. What a race that was for the Dutchman and for the Italian team. But what has that done to the standings? Well, Scott Dixon holds on to his lead on 126 points now, with De Vries moving up into second on 80, 46 points behind Dixon at the moment. A couple of race wins away, but stranger things have happened in racing that could still be overturned by the time we come to the checkered flag in Laguna Seca. Will Power moves down to 3rd in the Leighton House on 64 points. Pato Ward, consistent point scoring, has put him up to 4th now on 62 points. 2 ahead of Roman Grosjean in the Manor, still there in the top 5 as well. Antonio Felix da Costa 6th in his Minardi, ahead of Buemi and Castroneves in 2 Leighton Houses there on 52 and 37. Kobayashi is also on 37 points in 9th, and Stoffel Van Dorn moves into the top 10 on 36 points. In the team standings, Simtech leads the way, having taken over the lead of the championship from Leighton House, 162 points to 153, while Minardi is still clinging on to that battle on 144. Manor on 97, ahead of Arrows on 91, who move away from Super Guri in their fight for 5th. Onyx Grand Prix on 49, ahead of HRT on 45. Proster in 9th on 38, and BAR round out the top 10 with 23 points. Well, what another fantastic event it has been in the Grand Prix World Series. That is Brands Hatch done and dusted for another season. Next time we'll be looking to Hockenheim with a blast through the forest. This will require a lot of power and a lot of top speed. but it might also call into question the reliability of some of our cars. We will see what happens. With the upgrade window between now and then, will the team managers look to put some more reliability onto their cars, or will they go for broke in the high-speed, high-powered nature of the Hockenheim circuits? We will wait to see what happens. But until then, thank you all for tuning in. Take care.